Hey guys, it's Conf Hollywood Studios here, and today we will be talking about Jersey Devil Coaster. Now, I first rode Jersey Devil Coaster on the first day it opened back in early June for membership previews. This ride is a really good ride, and I gave a review of it pretty much right after it opened. Obviously, the ride has gone through quite a few changes ever since it opened, with the turning off of the trims, downtime to change the wheels. A lot has happened to Jersey Devil. So I think it's probably a good time for me to take a second look at the ride and see if my points in the review that I made back in June still hold up to what I think of the ride now. I've gotten just about 300 rides on Jersey Devil total, so I've experienced it in pretty much every condition you can think of. Super cold, super hot, running ridiculously fast, running incredibly slow, every condition possible for this ride. So I think it's safe to say I have a very good feel for how the ride is in different conditions and can tell if it really is as good as people say it is or if it's as bad as people say it is. So I'll start out by saying I think this ride is really good. It's in my top 20 favorite coasters I've ever been on because it really is a good ride. However, that is only in certain conditions, but it seems to have gotten progressively better over time, and I'll get to that in a second. When Jersey Devil first opened, it was definitely running a little slower than it is now. Obviously, the mid-course trims were still hitting, so you were coming pretty slow through that second half, whereas now you go through it pretty quickly, considering the trims are just totally off now. And back then, it had the old wheels, so it definitely ran a little differently. It felt differently too, which is kind of hard to explain, but it felt more new, which makes more sense, obviously. But there's just something about it that felt just different than the way it feels now. I'm not sure how much they did to change the trains, but when it first opened, it definitely had a bit of a different feel riding it than it does now. Right after the ride opened, it started having some different kind of changes, especially during the summer. In the month of like July and August, it was down for an extended period of time as they were trying to work out some of the kinks with the ride. First, they turned off the mid-course brakes because it was going a little too slow through the final portion of the ride, and RMC was there for a couple months, or at least a couple weeks after the ride initially opened, just to continue doing more adjustments to the ride, and that was definitely seen as I rode it more and more on different visits. I could see that the ride was definitely changing, getting faster, getting slower, definitely started to get more and more fast as it started to break in a little better, and once RMC left and the trims were left off, I knew it was going to be pretty darn good. But right after that, the ride went down and the wheels were swapped out. Apparently there was some kind of issue with Stunt Pilot, which has the same trains as Jersey Devil, so they had to kind of switch things around. It took it a little longer to reopen since it has 4 trains. And I really didn't get to ride it too much during the summer since I didn't go to Great Adventure that much during the summer. It was closed most of the time anyway, meaning Jersey Devil, and with El Toro closed too, I just decided not to really go back there as much as I normally would. But once Jersey Devil reopened around the end of August, it stayed open for a really long time, pretty much all the way until the end of the year with minimal downtime. And by then, especially around Fright Fest, it really started to keep moving faster and faster, to the point where by Holiday in the Park, it was running really fast on a 50-degree day, almost as fast as it would be running in the summer on like an 80-degree day. So what I'm hoping is that this is a sign that on, say, an 80-degree day next year, or later this year I should say, it's going to be running incredibly fast, faster than we've ever seen it. This ride definitely needed some time to break in, to start moving faster. I'm not sure why it took it so long to kind of start moving faster and breaking in. Probably because of the construction delays and the fact that half of the ride was built before it had to shut down construction, and the other half of the ride was built after it had to shut down for construction. So there's definitely a bit of a weird mishmash there, but the ride is definitely starting to run better and better. Obviously, Great Adventure is closed now, but I'm sure when it reopens in the spring, Jersey Devil will probably be running really good. As for other aspects of the ride, I think I started to notice elements like the dive loop were better than I had originally seen them as, and elements like the stall, the 0G roll, turnaround were still great. Same with the airtime hill. The second half still definitely isn't as great as it could be, but it's not that big of a deal since you still do get airtime on those off-axis hills. It's much more so floater, but you will get airtime as long as the ride is running at a decent speed. In the morning, the ride definitely does run quite a bit slower than it will later, but I found that within the first hour of park opening, as long as Jersey Devil is running consistently, it tends to warm up really fast. Like, it just starts speeding out of nowhere, which is really crazy. It also makes a huge difference with how many people you have on the train. There were times at the end of the season where I would be one of the only people on the train, and it went really slow through the course. I guess the extra weight from people, which really isn't all that much, really does make this ride go a lot faster. For whatever reason, I didn't really notice that on Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster, which is the original RMC Raptor down in Texas. But I guess this one is just built differently with different trains, and that just kind of is the way it is, which is strange. But the ride definitely is really good. It seems like it was kind of running the best during the end of Fright Fest, kind of in that like later autumn season, kind of in like October, November, even a little bit of December. It was running really, really good. And I think that my statement from the beginning stands, that this ride just needs quite a bit of time to kind of warm up and break in, but once it's warmed up and ready to go, it'll run really, really fast. Now, there's a lot of people that rode this ride over the summer, over the spring, the fall, whenever they rode it, and the opinions on the ride are definitely very mixed. There's a lot of people who say they just don't like it at all and they think it's not that good of a ride. Other people who think it's really, really good. And there's some people in the middle that think it's just alright. It's a good ride, but nothing crazy. As for the people who think it's not a good ride, I definitely think you should probably give it a re-ride. I definitely wait till after the park opens, like quite a bit of time. The ride really doesn't tend to get that bad of a line as long as it's running 3 or 4 trains. The line moves really fast anyways, but most people don't go to the ride that often, so it doesn't really have that bad of a wait as long as the crowds aren't too bad on the day you go. And definitely try to get very back or very front row. As long as you have a full train, it should be running pretty good and you should get a really, really good ride as long as you're in one of those end seats. But if you do ride it first thing in the morning, it's definitely not going to be running as fast as it can be, especially if you get a Zen ride. That's like when it's at its slowest. If you're the only person on the train, it's barely going to make it through the course, quite frankly. Just definitely make sure you're there on a day where it's going to be open in terms of like weather. If it's too cold, it's definitely not going to open, but any other time it'll definitely be open as long as there's no technical difficulties. But overall, the ride really has improved a lot ever since it opened. When it first opened, it wasn't a bad ride at all. It was a really good ride, it just needed some more time to get faster, so it definitely felt like it was going a bit slow through the elements. But I think now, I can definitely see that the ride has improved a lot. It's running way faster than I thought it did in the beginning, and overall Jersey Devil has gotten so much better than when it opened. Again, that's not to say it was bad when it first opened, it's just gotten so much faster, and overall it's just become such an enjoyable ride at the park. If you guys enjoyed my second look at Jersey Devil Coaster, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.